Dak Prescott is currently in his ninth season as a starting quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys. Prescott is coming off a year that was cut short prematurely due to a season-ending hamstring injury he suffered during Week 9 against the Atlanta Falcons, an injury he seems to have recovered from nicely thus far. However, this is not the first time this has happened. We all know that. The concern surrounding Dak's injury history is one of the main reasons why fans and analysts continue to question whether Dak can lead the Cowboys to a Super Bowl appearance. Prescott has proven that he possesses the physical tools it takes to lead a team to the postseason, or has he? Not to mention, it takes more than just physical skills to succeed at the game of football, as we all know. Intangibles and mindset play key factors in achieving success in pro football, if not more in most cases. Questions still linger regarding Dak's mindset and intangibles, along with questions about his consistency, leadership, and ability to win in high pressure moments. In this video, we're not just asking those questions. We're diving deep into the answers and uncovering whether or not Dak can lead the Dallas Cowboys to another Super Bowl. But before I begin, if you wouldn't mind, like, share, and subscribing, be very much appreciated. Now, I've been paying a lot of attention to off-season training of my Cowboys. Dak seems to be in good spirits. The team seems to be in good spirits. Excuse me. We all know what's going on with Micah and his contract situation. We'll talk about that on another video. I think I alluded to it in my last video, but we all know what's going on with that, so I'm not going to harp too much on that. I feel like one thing I will say before I really get into it, we seem to be trying hard a little bit in camp. When you're trying hard, that means there's a lack of substance somewhere. So I'm aware of it. I want you to be aware. The reason why I mention it is because I want you to be aware of it also. So now, to that question, can Dak actually get us to a Super Bowl? We all know that there's some issues regarding that. We all know his injury history. Now, this is the second significant leg injury he's had. Him started with this is his 10th season, 9 years as a starter. Second significant leg injury. Injury prone is a real thing, especially when you start accumulating them like that, especially when you're dealing with the legs. Luckily for him, he plays quarterback, so he can overcome it a little better than most would be able to, mainly because of his position. But that is a concern, man. A concern. We all heard the old adage, best ability is availability. That is true. Your health is wealth. If he's not on the field, how productive can he be? You can't get us to the Super Bowl if you're not available. And it's part of the game, right? So it's going to happen. So I'm not blaming him for the injuries per se, but I'm just saying it is what it is. It is a fact. That's one of the main issues, I think, with Dak as it pertains to leading the Cowboys to a Super Bowl. It's really his injury history. His proneness to injury. I mean, he has some significant broken leg. I mean, he has some things happen. Now, getting off of that, because I'm going to get a little into that a little bit more in a little later. But again, we're talking about issues I see with him getting us to the Super Bowl. Another issue, although he's a good leader, he lacks a certain level of assertiveness, I believe, is needed for any quarterback, especially when in his position being a quarterback for quote-unquote America's team. He lacks a certain assertiveness that's needed there. Any good leader has to have the ability to be. See, this is this thing about alphas, right? There's a misnomer when you talk about alphas. What's an alpha, right? A lot of people think alphas are people who are overly aggressive and very boisterous. Like some people see Donald Trump as an alpha or Conor McGregor. They're not alphas. That's not an alpha. An alpha alphas are all encompassing. An alpha is somebody who is whatever he needs to be in that moment. I do believe that Dak Prescott has an alpha trait, which is natural inclination toward creating peace. He looks to garner peace from him, the people around him. That goes a long way. To me, that's probably the most important trait of any good leader, and I believe he possesses that. But there's another part to being a great leader: fighting. There's a time to love and there's a time to fight. There's a time to accept, there's a time to include, and there's a time to exclude. Okay? That's something I believe Dak is lacking. With Dak, it's possible for him to overcome this, right? But he's going to have to start calling guys out a little more. Not in the sense of publicly or anything like that, but he's going to have to start garnering that kind of respect from the players around. And I don't mean all of a sudden becoming an asshole or anything. All that means is making sure that he addresses these people. He addresses guys when it needs to be, and he does it the right way. Maybe an office room, a meeting room, to the side, whatever it is. Maybe you and him take a ride one day. It's your teammate. Maybe y'all close enough. Y'all take a ride. Y'all go grab something to eat. But have a conversation with him. Always with respect, because anything else would not be accepted amongst men. Always with respect, but you let him know how you feel. And you also hold yourself responsible, because at the end of the day, you are the leader. And the team goes as you go. Another issue I see with us possibly getting to the Super Bowl, or Dak leading us to a Super Bowl, is the new coaching, play calling. Now, I imagine they're going to structure a lot of what goes on, a lot of play calling around what he does well. But there's a maturation process to that. If I was them, I would pretty much allow him to call the plays if they're being smart. Usually that does not happen though. Ego gets involved. Ego gets in the way. These coaches and these backward coaches, they don't understand things properly, and they'll allow their ego to kind of override their better judgment. And in a case like this, they will allow themselves not to give Dak the proper room is necessary, which is probably it's similar to what happened with Tom Brady in Tampa Bay. It took them, I mean, you're talking about the best quarterback to ever live. It took them all day. It took them so long to just give this man the proper room that was necessary. Say, listen, pretty much call your own plays and we'll get on your regimen. And of course, as the coach, you, at the end of the day, it's your call. However, it's up to the coach to humble himself, understand that it's not about him or his ego. And you're talking about what I was saying about Tom Brady. It took them almost a year to allow Tom Brady to kind of call plays the way he saw fit. You're talking about the greatest quarterback to ever live. A guy who's won how many? 7 Super Bowls doing it his way. You're going to tell him how to do things when you no. If you think it properly and you the coach, you say, okay, listen, shit, you won Super Bowls, you did it successfully. If I'm coordinating Dak, listen, your way works for the most part. It works for you. You're successful at what you do when you do it the way you need to do it. However, I'm going to see where the holes are at. I'm going to see where the issues lie, and I'm going to make sure that we fix those things. And that's where I will interject, and that's where I will start to implement my plan. But I'm not going to step on what it is that you do in order to do what I feel like I need to do. That's how you lose your job, and that's called a bad coach. I do believe, as I said earlier, he has some things that could contribute to him getting the Cowboys to a Super Bowl. One is just his natural ability. I think he's talented. Some people think differently. Is he a top 10 quarterback in the league? Not necessarily. I don't see him that way. However, I don't think he's far removed from that group. And I think he has the ability to be able to, because listen, he's got to conference championships. He's got into the playoffs a few different times. He's always been on the cusp. And listen, doing that in the NFL at that level, it's not easy, man. You know, maintaining the team for 17 games, 16, 17 games it is now. That's not an easy task. That's not an easy thing to do. I think in itself that shows that he has the capability to be a Super Bowl bound quarterback. Also, something else I've always admired about him and his game is his temperament. He's always even keel. He's never too up. He's never too down. That's that piece I was talking about. That's worth its weight in gold, really. And he hasn't always responded well at the big moments. He looks like he's lackadaisical. There's something there. And that's that assertiveness, that lack of assertiveness I talked about. He seems to cower a little bit. He seems to be not scared, but he's not naturally a fighter, man. He needs to learn how to be a fighter. And I'm going to get into some of that, how he can do that. But every guy does not possess that ability. I mean, not just your quarterback. I'm talking about players in general, where they can do something. Another guy that was similar to that was Russell Wilson. You know, where he has this ability where he knows how to move on. He don't allow the negative to kind of pin him down. I don't think Russell Wilson is the greatest example in a lot of different ways, but that part of his game I've always loved about Russell Wilson is he's never too up, he's never too down. And that keeps the team consistent. That keeps the boat from rocking. You understand what I'm saying? That means you can, and that's why Cowboys, when they're on the road, they're always steady. He has a lot to do with that. He does a great job with that. That also goes into my next point, which is he's an extraordinary communicator. One thing I noticed that he's really good at doing is mediating between the players and the coaches on the team. He does a good job of kind of bridging that gap and getting guys who he plays with to respond in a way that he tends to make the guys around him coachable. And he tends to teach the guys who are coaching them how to relate to the player enough to where the message gets across properly. That's another thing. I'm telling you, that's not easy to find either in a quarterback, in any player, let alone. That's the makeup of a real quarterback. It's a reason why Kellen Moore is the head coach at, first of all, Kellen Moore, and how Kellen Moore got better, how Kellen Moore got good as an offensive coordinator. When you're able to call plays and your guys execute them properly, you become successful by being successful. Learning how to be successful, learning how to win, that's something I think Dak needs to learn how to learn how to win. He's lacking that. That's something else he's lacking. He needs to learn the art of winning. There's an art to that. Dak is not talented enough that he can lack in any one of these traits that I just named that's good about him. He can't really lack in any of those traits and make it to a Super Bowl. His skill set is not that good. So he's always going to have to, and luckily for him, it's innate. The things that he does well. In other words, he was born to play the position. This is the truth. He was born to be a quarterback. And because it's a part of him, he don't really have to do anything but just make sure he's maintaining his overall mental health. Make sure he's in a good place mentally. So just general counseling, not even sports psychology. General counseling, making sure he's mentally healthy, physically. This will all contribute to making sure that because if he lacks in any one of those traits at any given time, which seems to happen when they get to the playoff, when they get to that playoff game, his ability to communicate decreases. His ability to that steadiness about him is no longer there. He shrinks in those moments. That's a problem. There's a particular reason for that. He needs to get to the root of the reason why that's happening, and he does not have the ability to overcome that. He doesn't have the physical ability of a Cam Newton. I think he's a way better quarterback than Cam Newton was, but I'm saying just the physical attributes, the traits. He's not a Tom Brady. He's not an Aaron Rodgers. He's not that kind of quarterback. You understand what I'm saying? But that don't mean he can't make it to a Super Bowl by being a little less than that. You know what I mean? He's kind of on that Jalen Hurts level. I think he's a little. I don't know if he's better than Jalen Hurts. If you ask me personally, I think he understands the game more than Jalen Hurts, and that's between him and Kellen Moore. Them two growing together, but I don't know. I wouldn't say that Jalen Hurts is better or he's better than Jalen Hurts. He just understands the game better, but physically they're kind of the same athlete. And Jalen Hurts won one, but of course there was other things involved, and maybe we'll talk about that on another video. Now, most fans recognize that Dak Prescott has dealt with his fair share of injuries throughout his career. However, injuries are part of the game, especially at the quarterback position. And in reality, Dak has completed more seasons than he hasn't. That alone speaks to a level of durability and dependability that often goes underappreciated. With an increased focus on preemptive self-care, including dietary improvements and year-round therapy, the likelihood of future injuries can reasonably be expected to decline for Dak Prescott. As for questions surrounding his consistency and assertiveness as a leader that we alluded to earlier, those are areas that can be developed. Tools like sports psychology, as we talked about, mindful training, and even martial arts can strengthen mental discipline and enhance leadership presence on and off the field. When it comes to adapting to a new system, there's every indication that Cowboys will tailor to suit Dak's strength. Something I did not mention earlier, but something the coaching staff has publicly committed to. And Dak, both intellectually and physically, has proven he's more than capable of executing at a high level regardless of the scheme. Combine that with his on-field performance, emotional steadiness, and unique ability to communicate, mediate, and unify the locker room, traits that define a true leader, and it's clear Dak possesses the tools to guide his team to a Super Bowl. His loyalty, work ethic, unwavering drive to master his craft may very well be what finally leads the Cowboys back to the championship stage that has eluded them for 3 decades. 3. It can happen. If you want my like, share, and subscribe, be much appreciated. I appreciate you for watching. I appreciate you for listening.